Welcome to the Zone. In today's faction report, we're going to analyze the total fighting power of all the major factions operating within the Zone, and see which faction would truly come out on top if an all-out war scenario occurred. If you enjoy the content, feel free to like and subscribe. It sounds cliche, but it really helps the channel out. Without further ado, let's dive in. Considering that the Stalker series spans 3 official games, which take place over the course of many months, it's important to look at each faction at their highest point of power. Obviously, if we were to look into Clear Sky's forces and equipment during the events of Call of Pripyat, we would see that this faction doesn't exist, giving us nothing to work with. If you were to take into account the non-canon storylines of other games like Stalker Anomaly, where a few members of Clear Sky survived to carry on their faction's fight, the faction that we see in Anomaly is nothing compared to what we see in Clear Sky when they attempted to take control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. For this reason, all factions will be analyzed at their peak. Furthermore, when examining each faction, we will be looking at key areas of strength and weaknesses, such as manpower, equipment availability, artifact accessibility, training and readiness, and command structure, as well as any wildcards that a particular faction may have. Each of these areas will be assigned a score, and at the end of the analysis, an aggregate score will be assigned to each faction. This number should give us a relatively good idea of each faction's ability to wage war in the Zone, as well as how likely they are to win that war. Keep in mind, this conflict would look something like a modern-day war, where platoon and company-sized elements of stalkers would be fighting to take and hold ground, as well as eliminate key enemy assets. While we know that even a single legendary stalker can bring down dozens of powerful operatives from a faction like Monolith, Strelick is 1 in a million for a number of reasons, as is Scar, and it's unlikely that another stalker like them will be found in the Zone anytime soon. Furthermore, the numbers that represent each characteristic will be gauged between 1 and 100, 1 being the worst, 100 being the absolute best in the Zone. For the purposes of this specific video, a score of 50 will be average. With all this out of the way, let's finally transition into our analysis. Loners, or free stalkers. While it goes without saying that loners aren't really a faction, but rather a catch-all for anyone not affiliated with the faction, there is some level of organization among the loners who roam throughout the Zone. Most of these loners will congregate around more experienced stalkers who are employed by artifact traders, seeking to find safety in numbers, while they build their skills and attempt to find better equipment. Most free stalkers are in the Zone to make a better life for themselves, or to simply go on the adventure of a lifetime. Regardless for their reasons, they will almost always come into contact with people like Sidorovich or Beard, who will organize free stalkers into a ragtag group of bandit-killing artifact hunters. Considering that the hierarchy of loners is very loose, and that there is no real command structure at all, it seems very reasonable to rate their command structure at a 25. While a command structure does at least exist, there is no way to truly bring the entire force of free stalkers under one banner, making it difficult to actually organize a real offensive or to counter enemy movements. The manpower of the loners seems to be almost limitless, as during the events of Shadow of Chernobyl, we see that every day, new stalkers arrive at the cordon, seeking to make their fortune in the Zone. However, while there are always new people entering the Zone, not all of them remain free stalkers, and even more of them will perish in their new, harsh environment. For this reason, I think that it's fair to give the free stalkers a solid 50 in their manpower. If the loners could organize just a bit better, or protect or train new stalkers, their attrition rates would drop significantly, which would certainly make them one of the largest factions in the Zone. When it comes to equipment, loners are not known to have the best gear. Generally speaking, most loners will show up to the Zone with a pistol and some sturdy clothing. Even though some will come to the Zone with much more expensive and impressive hardware, the average free stalker will be woefully undergeared for the most hostile and alien place on the planet. All is not lost for this score yet, however, as loners can be seen adventuring through the Zone. These adventures will lead some stalkers to acquire equipment rivaling or surpassing standard Ukrainian military gear. Barring being able to find any gear, The loners themselves are excellent artifact hunters, and will be sure to use any profits from their hunts to upgrade their arsenal. For the reasons above, I think an equipment score of 40 is reasonable. Loners have considerable access to artifacts all throughout the zone, and some of the best artifact hunters in the zone identify as loners or free stalkers. The artifacts that they acquire could be used to bolster their combat effectiveness of their faction or themselves, or they could be traded and smuggled out of the zone, giving them a financial advantage to purchase better equipment and supplies. For the loner artifact availability score, they're going to get a strong 65. While most loners are undoubtedly very new to the alien landscape of the zone, the few who do become veteran stalkers can be seen leading groups of rookies, or assigning them to tasks that are best suited to their skill level. While the bulk of loners won't survive for very long at all, the ones who do will go on to be highly trained stalkers, and contend with a variety of threats. For their training and readiness score, the loners will get a 45. Adding together the scores from each category, this leaves the loners with a score of 225, sitting slightly below the average of 250. Bandits. The Bandits are a very well-known faction, in that they are constantly patrolling the zone, attempting to steal and strong-arm any resources that they lay their eyes upon. Most of the members of the Bandit faction are criminals from the outside world, either attempting to evade justice or simply trying to corner the lucrative and illegal artifact trade market. Being experts in extortion and criminal enterprise, the Bandits have been seen carrying out all manner of crimes, from small robberies to forced labor prison camps. While the Bandits are sometimes seen acting similar to loners in their command structure, there have been times where a single leader has emerged, unifying the roaming groups of bandits into a single military power in the zone. When bandit leaders like Yoga or Sultan have control over a majority of bandits in the zone, their ability to organize increases exponentially due to the threats of violence for those who disobey, or for the promises of wealth for those who earn well. For this reason, the bandits will be getting a command structure rating of 50. Even though the bandits have a decent amount of new stalkers coming to them to make a quick buck, the reputation of bandits is extremely poor. This alone will keep many from following through with siding with this criminal empire. On top of the poor reputation, many stalkers in the zone simply do not get along with the personality types that comprise the bandit ranks, or they're simply repulsed by the bandits' methods. While their ranks do not swell with numbers, there are more than enough bandits to hold down key areas of the zone, such as the garbage. For this reason, bandits will get a 50 for their manpower score. The weakest link in the bandit war machine is undoubtedly their lack of weaponry and equipment. Bandits are commonly seen wearing little more than trench coats or simple clothing. For weapons, bandits can be seen commonly using simple shotguns and submachine guns. While there are examples of bandits using much more powerful weaponry and armor, these examples are rare exceptions which result only from a lucky score on an unprepared victim. It would be easy to justify giving the bandits an equipment score of 20. While the bandits themselves are very unlikely to engage in artifact hunting, they are more than capable of taking artifacts from others. Bandits can be seen carrying around a variety of artifacts, even some of the more rare ones found in the deepest parts of the zone. Couple this with the bandit slave labor camp in the garbage, and it's easy to see why the bandits will get an artifact score of 50. Bandits also seem to have a highly varied amount of training. Although most bandits will surely be very hard individuals who lived lives of crime and violence, they will certainly not be prepared for the dangers that lurk in the zone, or for combat with more disciplined forces. Bandits do not seem to give significant training for their new members, but it is unlikely that they would recruit someone who is unwilling to steal and kill, meaning their personality type is certainly conducive to fight. In regards to their training and readiness, the bandits will get a score of 30. Considering the 5 categories that we're examining today, the bandits will get an aggregate score of 200 for their total faction power score. Duty. The next faction we're going to be examining is Duty, one of the larger factions in the zone, and one of the most recognizable. Duty has dedicated itself to stopping the horrors of the zone from spreading to the outside world at large. It was founded by members of the military who were left behind after a failed assault on the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, who recruited other survivors and stalkers to help them in their cause. The members of Duty place their devotion to their cause above anything else and are fanatical in their mission. Duty, being comprised of many former military personnel, is structured similarly to a military unit. For the most part, Duty has a very top-down, hierarchical structure that is clearly visible to each member. At no time is there confusion about who is in charge, who commands, and what the mission is. This can be seen by the use of a military ranking system that Duty adopted, which contains standard military ranks. Commands are issued by a general who assumes the role of the faction leader. For the rigorous nature of their command structure, and the average Duty soldier's devotion to following the hierarchy, Duty will receive a 90 in command structure. The command structure and mission of Duty must be very appealing to stalkers, as the faction continuously sees new recruits show up for training and task assignment. This manpower is further preserved by assigning each soldier to small elements who complete assigned tasks as a cohesive unit, avoiding unnecessary combat and trophy hunting while still completing the mission. This can be seen throughout the game series, where Duty soldiers are placed at checkpoints and maintain a safe area around their headquarters, only having to eliminate small threats like mutibors or dogs. Because of the amount of soldiers that join Duty, as well as Duty's ability to avoid unnecessary and non-strategic combat, they will get an 80 in manpower. The equipment that Duty utilizes is standard Eastern Bloc military issue weaponry. AK variants of all types can be seen being used by the majority of Duty soldiers, with the occasional exception for lower-ranking soldiers who can be seen using older military equipment, such as Mosin Nagants or shotguns. On top of the weaponry that Duty uses, they are also extremely well equipped with armor and other supplies. Rostock boasts one of the largest stockpiles of ammunition and medical supplies in the zone, as well as an armory full of various types of body armor and exoskeletons. On top of this, Duty also utilizes an inventory logging system, which allows the faction to ensure that their equipment doesn't go missing. For this reason, Duty will receive a strong 85 for an equipment score. While Duty has been seen trading and utilizing artifacts, for the most part, Duty does not prioritize the acquisition of artifacts unless it is for the purposes of removal or containment. Compared to other factions in the zone, Duty certainly falls short in this department. For this reason, Duty will get a 40 for their artifact score. Although Duty didn't do too well regarding artifacts, in training and readiness, Duty is one of the most rigorously trained factions in the zone. Squad leaders can commonly be seen leading their soldiers through PT, and ensuring that they maintain their equipment and bodies ready for the fight ahead. Duty also maintains a strong disdain for their soldiers utilizing excessive mind-altering drugs, presumably because of the negative effects associated with drug usage. Because of Duty ensuring that each of their soldiers is able to engage an enemy and respond to threats at a moment's notice, they will get a 95 in training and readiness. Taking all the categories above into consideration, Duty will receive a whopping score of 390. Freedom. Moving on to the next faction that we will analyze today, we have Freedom. This faction is widely known throughout the zone as the faction that mans the barrier, a fortified position in the army warehouses that sees some of the most vicious assaults from Monolith and zombies. Fighting for free access to the zone for all people, Freedom is comprised of like-minded stalkers who wish to escape the politics of the world and those who wish to forge their own destiny within the zone. Following a largely decentralized command structure, Freedom operatives are organized into a club or clan of stalkers who share a common goal, rather than a regimented military organization. While this is certainly not as effective as the command structures that other factions utilize, Freedom has time and time again shown itself to be a formidable force when it needs to be. Examples of this can be seen during skirmishes with Duty, or when holding the barrier against unending hordes of zombies. Freedomers tend to organize into smaller groups of friends and complete missions as they come, and they tend to use endearing terms for each other like bro or man, rather than military ranks. While Freedom is certainly not as organized as other factions, because of its ability to organize its forces when needed, Freedom will receive a score of 60 for its command structure. Freedom is one of the larger factions operating within the zone, and it's commonly seen doing battle with duty. Unaffiliated stalkers will often find common ground with Freedom ideals, enjoying the alien nature of the zone for what it is, as well as taking advantage of the benefits that having no government oversight brings. Although there are less stalkers lining up to join Freedom than other factions, say like Duty, there are still many who decide to take up the fight to defend the zone. For this reason, I'll be giving Freedom a 75 for their manpower score. Boasting a wide variety of NATO weaponry, as well as marksman rifles, Freedom has one of the most impressive arsenals in the zone. Even novice members will be issued standard 5.56 caliber rifles, while the more experienced members will utilize rifles like the SVD. Many of these rifles will take the form of a TR-301 or a GP-37, while more advanced weaponry will take the form of the SGI-5K. Most members will be equipped with either the Wind of Freedom or the Guardian of Freedom armor, which is capable of reducing significant damage from small arms fire. Most experienced members can be seen using exoskeletons and heavy armor throughout heavy combat areas. Because of the amount and type of weapons and armor in Freedom's arsenal, they'll be getting an 85 for equipment score. Unlike Duty, Freedom openly embraces the use and study of artifacts. In fact, many Freedom members can be seen scouring the zone for rare artifacts, hoping to unlock some esoteric secrets that they hold. As we've covered in other videos, some of these artifacts can provide amazing benefits to soldiers, from increasing the speed at which their blood clots, all the way to reducing their overall weight. Freedom is also known to trade artifacts with both ecologists and the outside world, utilizing the profits from such sales to fund their operations within the zone. Because of this, Freedom will be getting a 75 for an artifact score. Even though Freedom doesn't have the rigorous physical training and drilling that Duty builds into their soldiers, Freedom operatives are constantly seeing combat with some of the most dangerous enemies the zone has to offer. Because of this constant fighting, Freedomers have developed some of the best sharpshooters in the zone, as well as developed world-class fieldcraft. This excellent skill base is offset in some cases by the use of recreational drugs and alcohol, leaving some of their members to be caught in a firefight with their judgment impaired, or in the worst case, leaving them unable to fight effectively. For these reasons, Freedom gets an 80 in training and readiness. In total, Freedom will receive a respectable aggregate score of 375. The military. The next faction we're going to look at needs to have a short caveat attached to it. The military operating in the zone is generally limited to containing the cordon aside from rare operations that are launched into more remote areas. We can see that the military stalkers are obviously very well outfitted, and they're equally trained as well. We know roughly how many there are, as well as how well they fight, but we can't be totally sure about them as a faction. If we were to go off real estimates that correlate roughly to the in-game universe, it's pretty obvious that the military would be able to deploy tens of thousands of soldiers at a moment's notice, far exceeding the entire population of the zone many times over. We never see them deploying a massive force like this in the game, but it's certainly possible if the government ever wanted to launch some massive attack. While the military has launched larger operations in the past, such as the operation launched shortly after the second disaster, most of these resulted in failure, as environmental factors all but wiped out the task force. We also know that the weapons, armor, training, and command structure of the military stalkers, and we have a general idea about how many men they could field in an all-out fight for the control of the zone. But there is simply no way to quantify how well they would fare. If we factor in the sea consciousness to this fight, it's highly unlikely that the military would even be allowed to begin its assault without a stream of emissions being triggered. It's very possible that without the influence of the sea consciousness, that the military would be able to simply steamroll the zone, while accruing serious casualties in the process. For the reasons listed above, it's not possible to really give the military a quantifiable score. If I were to guess the combat power of the military stalkers, simply in the zone by themselves already with no outside help, I would estimate that it would be in the 300 to 400 range, but again, this is simply a guess. Monolith. Moving on to one of the most recognizable factions, and the largest, we have Monolith. Monolith is easily the most numerous faction in the zone, comprised of brainwashed stalkers and zombies, and the massive Monolithian army that protects the sea consciousness from the outside world. Each member is completely devoted to their cause, willing to sacrifice their lives at a moment's notice if it will result in securing their objective. The sea consciousness that Monolith serves is a combined consciousness that is able to tap into the noosphere, a parallel dimension to our own, which allows it to control the energies that permeate the zone, as well as influence the thoughts of living beings. Each being enthralled to its command will carry out its orders without hesitation, from the average Monolithian soldier to the seemingly mindless zombie, being a mind that is comprised of multiple world-renowned scientists, as well as having access to a greater understanding of the metaphysical noosphere. The sea consciousness possesses an intelligence that is unobtainable for a normal human. To help it distribute its orders more effectively, the sea consciousness may enlist the help of commanders, seen in Charon or Preacher. These commanders will carry out the orders they're given with fanatic obedience, believing that they are serving the will of the wish granter. Even those who are not directly under its control are still affected by its pull, as it can reach out into the noosphere and influence the actions of humans indirectly. Because of the reasons listed above, and given the sea consciousness' ability to control without question, and to organize its forces almost perfectly to counter its enemies, Monolith will receive a 100 for its command structure score. Because of the Psi Storms, Brain Scorcher, and the magnetic draw of the Wish Granter itself, Monolith has an almost limitless potential for recruitment. Those who journey too deep into the zone without psi protection will almost certainly be enthralled by the sea consciousness. It's impossible to truly know how many soldiers and zombies the sea consciousness has under its command, but Monolith is easily the largest operating force within the zone. We can also see that the amount of manpower Monolith has comes from battle-hardened troops, such as those from Clear Sky. The only possible downside to Monolith's recruitment methods could be that the brainwashing process seems to take a toll on those under the sea consciousness's command. It seems to be the case that all Monolith soldiers will eventually degrade into zombie stalkers, creating a real need for fresh soldiers to be indoctrinated into Monolith ranks. For this reason, Monolith will only be getting a 90 for their manpower score. As I mentioned in a previous video, the scientific research team known as the Group was responsible for creating the sea consciousness and some of the mutants that we see in the zone. They were given funding from the Soviet government to carry out these experiments in underground labs, and were given a huge budget for security, logistics, and supplies. Most of these stockpiles were taken by Monolith when the sea consciousness first formed, allowing the faction to arm and outfit its soldiers with the top-of-the-line equipment. Because of the nature of the zone, and the materials and supplies that were left in the research labs, Monolith is able to upgrade their equipment, both with conventional means and via the use of artifact experimentation. This experimentation allowed them to reverse engineer the prototype EM-1 rifle, which was acquired from Clear Sky. Each Monolith soldier is armed and armored very well, but the most senior members of Monolith will utilize exoskeletons and Gauss weaponry to dominate the battlefield. For this reason, Monolith will receive a 100 for their equipment score. Unlike most other factions who wish to study or trade artifacts, Monolith has a much deeper knowledge about the true nature of the zone. Instead of simply studying artifacts or utilizing their primary qualities for a boon in combat, the sea consciousness will direct Monolith servants to utilize artifacts to their full potential, creating new technologies to help in their mission, like the Gauss rifle mentioned before in the equipment section. The development of artifact-based weaponry shows that Monolith is obviously able to consistently manipulate artifacts, and by extension, noosphere energy. This greater insight into artifacts in the noosphere give Monolith an obvious edge over even the best scientists in the world. For this reason, Monolith will be receiving a 100 in their artifact score. Similar to the other categories we've already discussed, Monolith maintains one of the best trained and regulated military forces within the zone. Its members are built from the lowest stalker all the way up to the most daring and highly trained operatives within the zone. What they were before is of little importance, however, as they will be reborn with an overwhelming desire and clarity of mind. Each Monolith soldier is a fanatical servant, enthralled to the sea consciousness's will. They will not party and sit around a fire telling stories, but will rather pray for guidance from their idol. Instead of searching for an artifact to sell and trying to find adventure, Monolith members will constantly patrol the zone, searching for a new way to bring glory to their faction and God. Even if they are beaten back by more experienced stalkers, as we saw in Clear Sky, at the very brink of defeat, Monolithians will continue to fight to the last man, choosing to utilize suicide attacks against their enemies rather than fail their master. For this fanatic dedication to their goal and their unwavering desire to achieve victory, they will receive a 100 in training and readiness. Monolith, unsurprisingly, receives an incredible aggregate score of 490. Clear Sky. The next faction on our list is Clear Sky, one of the oldest factions to operate within the zone, as well as one of the more difficult factions to really analyze. Their primary function is to study the zone and determine the ultimate reason for the zone's existence. Primarily comprised of scientists that left the group before the zone first emerged, as well as significant mercenary security forces to protect and facilitate their operations, Clear Sky is a unique mixture of battle-hardened soldiers and world-class scientists. The command structure of Clear Sky is organized around X-group scientists who have a deep insight into the zone's nature. Leaders like Lebedev will organize research opportunities for his fellow scientists, as well as issue orders to Clear Sky's combat teams, ensuring that both threats and opportunities are investigated and dealt with accordingly. The leadership of Clear Sky attempts to maintain a neutral relationship with most other factions in the zone, preferring to prevent fights rather than waste resources winning them. While the command structure of this faction is not the best, they are still highly centralized and benefit from the insight that their leaders possess. For these reasons, Clear Sky will get a 70 for its command structure score. Clear Sky began as a small faction of researchers hiding in the Great Swamps, but soon very quickly enlisted the help of mercenaries to help them in their struggles. Clear Sky began to also see bolstered numbers of recruits during the faction wars, which soon caused them to become one of the larger factions operating in the zone during that time. The recruits that joined Clear Sky are made up of stalkers of varying skill and means, but each seems to believe in the goals of the overall faction. We see at Clear Sky's height, they are able to control the vast majority of the Great Swamps, as well as deploy forces to Lemansk, the Red Forest, and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. For these reasons, Clear Sky will be getting an 80 for their manpower score. The equipment that Clear Sky utilizes throughout their campaign changes greatly, beginning as a very poorly equipped and ragtag band of stalkers, and ending as second only to Monolith in regards to their weapons, technology, and armor. This can be seen with the utilization of shotguns and pistols during their beginnings, only for these weapons to be replaced by AK-74s and CS2 body armor suits. The pinnacle of their equipment development, however, takes the form of the EM-1 rifle, which is better known as the Gauss rifle that the elite Monolith soldiers carry on their missions. For these reasons, and for the amount of firepower that Clear Sky had at its disposal during the assault on the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Clear Sky will get a 90 for its equipment score. Being a research-oriented organization before it ever began its military operations in the zone, as well as having direct insight into the true nature of the noosphere, Clear Sky has one of the most complete libraries of knowledge concerning anomalies and artifacts. Their knowledge of artifacts has led them to create weapons such as the EM-1 rifle mentioned previously, which was originally developed before the zone's creation by the group scientists. Clear Sky's ex-group members, having knowledge of the original project, were able to seize the resources necessary to finally complete it with the help of utilizing the Flash artifact. Because of its in-depth knowledge of artifacts and how they can be utilized, Clear Sky will get a 90 for its artifact score. In regards to training and readiness, Clear Sky is comprised of soldiers of different ability, so it's difficult to gauge how combat effective they are as a whole. It's easy to see that the hired mercenaries working with Clear Sky were highly experienced, and it's also clear that the faction as a whole was able to push all the way into the very heart of the zone. While we do see less skilled soldiers operating in the Great Swamps, there seems to be a structure put in place to guide and ensure readiness for combat. Because of these reasons, and because of the many members of Clear Sky that were experienced mercenaries or dedicated scientists, they will be receiving an 80 in training and readiness score. As I said above, Clear Sky is a bit of a tricky faction to truly gauge, as it only exists in one game and we don't have a lot of information about them. But because of their ability to drive Monolith back to the brink of destruction, I think an aggregate score of 410 is certainly appropriate. Ecologists. The second to last faction we will be examining is the Ecologists, or Scientists as they're sometimes referred to. This faction of highly skilled researchers is dedicated to learning all about the zone and all it has to offer for humanity. Most of the members of the Ecologist faction are government scientists who were brought in to discover the causes for the zone's appearance, but there are a select number of stalkers who have been hired by them, or who have outright joined them, and the Ecologists use them to help with security and expeditions into dangerous parts of the zone. The Ecologists are also assisted by the military at times, which allows them to leverage the protection and firepower of the government without having to manage a large number of manpower. Ecologists are led by Professor Sakharov, who maintains complete control of the operation. The research carried out is entirely delegated by Sakharov according to each scientist's particular speciality. In terms of research, the Ecologists are organized and maintain a clear structure of command and discipline that goes with it. However, in combat situations, the chain of command becomes much more muddied. Most of the stalkers who work for the Ecologists are simply given an assigned task with an associated reward. These tasks could be to recover papers from an old X lab, or could be much more simple, such as delivering an artifact or mutant sample. While inside the laboratory, a procedure is followed to the letter. Outside tasks are highly decentralized in nature. Because of this, the Ecologists will be receiving a 40 in command structure. Although Ecologists are one of the smaller factions operating in the zone, they do not advertise nor reward dedicated membership. It's widely known throughout the zone that almost any stalker can get temporary employment from the Ecologists. Aside from actually being interested in the zone's secrets, or wanting a more friendly relationship with the government and the military, there are a few reasons to officially join the Ecologist team. For this reason, the Ecologists will be receiving a manpower score of 20. While their combat equipment leaves much to be desired, Ecologists have some of the most impressive environmental protection suits in existence. These suits allow the Ecologists to venture into areas that would be otherwise certainly fatal for most stalkers. This allows them to either evade threats or to acquire rare artifacts. Most of the weaponry that these scientists utilize are personal defense weapons, which are largely ineffective at bringing down larger mutants or for prolonged combat operations. Because of this, Ecologists will be receiving a 30 for their equipment score. Because of the scientific nature of their mission, Ecologists are some of the world's foremost experts on artifacts and their abilities. They have constant interaction with artifacts and are eager to hire freelance stalkers to deliver them at a premium price. Even though they don't have the insight that Clear Sky or Monolith has into the true nature of the noosphere, Ecologists will be getting a respectable 70 for their artifact score. Similar to the Ecologists' equipment, they're more ready to clean up a spill in the lab than they are to traverse the deadly threats of the zone. While there are some more experienced ecologists, such as Professor Kruklov, who are eager to utilize the combat version of their environmental suit and defend themselves and others, he is an exception and certainly not the norm. For this reason, Ecologists will be receiving a training and readiness score of 20. While the Ecologists are certainly not the most combat-effective faction in the zone, because of their knowledge and help from the military, I believe an aggregate score of 180 is fair. However, without the help of outside freelance stalkers, or protection from the military, I'm sure that the Ecologists would have a far lower score. Mercenaries. The last faction we will be analyzing today are the Mercenaries. These highly secret foreign operators are notorious throughout the zone for their professionalism and ruthless behavior. While it is unknown what their true goal is, and it is known that they are primarily of Western origin and have a common benefactor. Please note that the Mercenaries are a loose confederation of autonomous soldiers, which complete jobs for outside powers, and while they generally utilize the same equipment and tactics, they may vary in ability from group to group. There is also a distinct difference between the type of mercenary that Scar or Leshy were, and mercenaries seen operating elsewhere. It's difficult to assign an overarching score for this faction because of this. It should also be noted that factions in the zone, such as the Bandits, may be seen purchasing temporary help of mercenaries, so alliances and enemies will tend to fluctuate. The mercenary command structure is similar to that of a private military contractor. Jobs are issued through a dispatcher which come from the client, and are issued to leaders such as Wolfhound or Jackal. These missions will be delegated to smaller teams, or if the mission is important or large enough, the entire mercenary cell. While there exist multiple cells which seem to have their own leadership, the mercenaries can be seen to complete objectives that are similar in nature. Assassination jobs and package recovery are common missions, as well as security missions which are issued by factions within the zone. Because of the largely decentralized nature of their overarching command, the mercenaries will get a 60 in their command score. The number of mercenaries operating in the zone is largely unknown, but we can take an educated guess and say that they are a moderately sized force. Mercenaries can be seen operating all throughout the zone, and while we can't have an accurate idea of their size compared to other factions, the ability to project forces in different regions certainly means that they are at least as prevalent as bandits or other mid-sized factions. During the events of Shadow of Chernobyl, mercenaries are a powerful force that can be used to turn the tide of faction wars. But as we can see during the events of Call of Pripyat, very few mercenaries are seen operating in the zone. To be safe, the mercenaries will receive a conservative manpower score of 50. I feel that this is a certainly safe number, and if it is off, I would say that the mercenaries' manpower score would certainly be higher. Mercenaries are also one of the more well-equipped factions, utilizing newer Western weaponry and armor systems. Mercs can be seen commonly carrying TR-301s during their combat operations, but on rare occasions may utilize AK-74s. While they do not utilize stalker suits, they can be seen commonly using a moderately armored version of the combat suit. More experienced mercenaries will be seen using exoskeletons or a variation of the SIVA suit. These more experienced mercenaries will also utilize better weaponry, such as the FT-200 and GP-37 rifles. Because of these reasons, I think it's more than fair to give this faction a 75 for equipment score. Despite mercenaries being seen collecting artifacts on occasions for missions, they for the most part seem to be largely uninterested in utilizing or researching them, focusing more on collecting classified materials from abandoned X-labs instead. While there are sure to be some mercenaries utilizing artifacts to improve their combat effectiveness, artifacts function more as a simple vehicle to generate income. For this reason, mercenaries will be receiving a 40 for their artifact score. Unlike many stalkers who enter the zone, mercenaries are experienced and combat-hardened soldiers, first and foremost. While factions like Duty will drill and train new recruits until they're ready for combat, mercenaries arrive in the zone ready to work by earning money from their combat operations. We never see the mercenaries actively try to recruit new stalkers into their ranks like Duty or Freedom, meaning that the majority of their forces are most likely coming from these Western countries, if we assume that all the mercenaries who are under contract from this outside client are veteran soldiers. It stands to reason that most of the mercenaries in the zone are highly trained. For this reason, mercenaries will be receiving an 80 in training and readiness. Considering the categories above, this brings the total aggregate mercenary score to 305. So just to recap before we end the video, the aggregate scores for each faction that I came up with were Loners, 250, Bandits, 200, Duty, 390, Freedom, 375. Military is unknown or unquantifiable. Monolith, 490. Clear Sky, 410. Ecologists, 180. And Mercenaries, 305. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, feel free to like and subscribe for more Stalker-related content. What score would you have given each faction? Was there anything that I missed or that would change the scoring outcome considerably? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you in the zone.